So look, let's jump in. I want to start by telling you a story, and it's the story of my Amazon interview, which was a pretty solid train wreck. And as a solid train wreck, there's a lot to be learned from it, and so you can learn from what I did wrong. And I want you to do that so you don't have to. And then we'll start taking viewer questions, which I appreciate people putting in and voting on, because the way the show works is I drive off your list of questions. So let's see. We're going to blow this window up a little more so I'll better be able to read them. Fantastic. So the story of my interview. I interviewed at Amazon a long time ago. I started there in April of 2005. And during that time, I flew into town the night before the interview. I think it was a Thursday night. I was coming in. This is probably mistake number one. I was coming in from a business trip. It really was business in Las Vegas. And I flew up to Seattle and got in pretty late in the evening. And I hadn't had anything to eat on the plane. So I went down in the hotel, and the only thing left open was the bar. So I thought, okay, bar food it is. And I went into the bar, and I started talking to a guy, and I ended up talking to him till about 3 a.m. Now I had to interview the next morning, very early. And so this was the conversation was very engaging. The man was very upset. He was crying a lot, and I thought I'm really going to try and help him out. But the result was I was up until 3 a.m. So the happy part is I made one of the best friends of my life on that bar stool. The unhappy part is I was up, geez, till 3 a.m. and then I had to get up about 7 to be in at 8 or 9 for the interview. So I went up to my room, and my general thought was, honestly, I have completely screwed this up. Now, this will play into how I ended up getting the job at Amazon, at least in part, and I want to share that. And the way it plays in is I took the pressure off myself. I figured I've already blown this interview, at least I have a job, and if it's not going to work out, that's okay because I already have a job, so I'll just go do my best. So the first thing I think you can learn from what I did is try not to go into an interview desperate to get the job. Um, Desperation shows, people can smell it. And if you can go in with confidence of, hey, I hope this works for both of us, but I'm okay if it doesn't, I think that's much better. So, what I'm recommending essentially is if you can, try to have an attitude that says, my life will not end if I don't get this job. I'm interested, I'm eager. You don't want to be dismissive, but lesson one, go in doing your best and don't hang your life on it. So that was probably the biggest mistake I made. But then what happened? Well, my interview day was pretty long, and in one of the interviewers, um, I walked into a room. I didn't know any of the people. They didn't give me a list of who I'd be talking to. And I met a gentleman who stayed at Amazon many years. I don't know if he's there anymore, but I was interviewing to be a manager, specifically what Amazon calls a senior manager. And he said, well, I hear you're here to talk about management. I don't know anything about that. We're going to code. And that's literally how he opened it. That was like his first or second sentence. And so that's pretty hostile, right? Being honest, that's like pretty damn direct. And I would just say that wasn't what I was hoping for, but you got to deal with it. And so luckily, I'm used to coding. I just jumped right in and ran with it. And so that's what I did. And I got through that. But the point you can learn from is if someone asks you a hostile question or you have a difficult interviewer, the next thing is since your life doesn't depend on the interview, try not to let it throw you. I had no idea what he wanted to talk about when I walked in the room. And when he kind of put it in my face as a challenge, I think, of we're going to see if managers can code, or maybe he was just low social skill, um, I had to deal with it. And I would advise if you run into an interviewer who's hostile or difficult, but not actually insulting or something uh, unreasonable, like say racist or sexist, um, just ignore it and answer the questions. Now, uh, if someone is really difficult, like racist or sexist or inappropriate, absolutely just stop them. Just say, "I'm sorry, I don't need to answer that," or "I'm sorry, that's not appropriate." That should be incredibly rare, and so I'm not going to go deep into that. Like I've rarely to never even heard of it happening. Most people have enough common sense not to say something that inappropriate, even if they're secretly thinking it. And so, but you don't need to tolerate abuse in an interview. What you may need to tolerate is people who think they're going to see how you do under pressure. And so the key is realize if someone feels like they're coming at you, they may feel like they're trying to see how you react under pressure. And so just be calm. Okay. So, um, that's the hostile interview. Now, later on in the interview day, I had someone who really made a point that I simply didn't agree with. And for any of the software engineers in the audience, basically they were talking about QA, and at that time, Amazon just pushed a lot of things live. They didn't. They didn't do a lot of testing. They kind of tested live back in 2005. And I was talking about this sort of normal ratio of QA engineers to software engineers that I had learned in other areas. And we got into a bit of a debate about what was appropriate, what was the right investment in QA. And I said, I stated my point, but I realized this other gentleman who was interviewing me, who turned out to be what Amazon calls the bar raiser, like the sort of a super interviewer. Um, I realized that he had a different opinion, and after I had made my point, there was no need to fight with him. So I just let it go. I had made my point, I had stood up for what I believed, and then I just let it go. Because you want to be firm and you want to be assertive, but there is no value to getting into an outright argument with your interviewer. At least I don't think so. You do want to have an opinion and you want to be able to defend it. But after I did that, I thought, okay, this guy doesn't agree with me. Just let it go. Um, the last thing's kind of a funny ending. So I think I had 8 interviews that day. Remember, I went in with like only 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours of sleep and a pot of coffee. And at the end of that, I met this guy who started asking me very strange questions, like, "What questions do you have?" And "Where are you from?" And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I knew he was like a leader in the team, but I hadn't been given a lot of context. And honestly, I was much too slow to figure out he was now trying to sell me. So they had decided that it was I was someone they wanted to hire. They had run around in the back channel, and they had said, "Hey, get this person get this person on the loop so that they can sell Ethan on coming and joining us." Well, I was still trying to answer his questions. I'm like, "Hey, what do you want to know about me? I'm happy to share." And it took me much too long to figure out, oh, I'm supposed to be asking you questions about Amazon. So that was just a mistake on my part. And the point that you can learn from here is read the person a little bit and listen better than I did. I was tired, but I was also so eager to sell myself, I didn't catch on that by trying to sell myself, I was actually being socially inept in that circumstance, because he wanted to know what I wanted to know. And I was asking him, "What do you want to know?" And so that makes a very strange circle. So it helps to know the pattern of your